I must tell you, this is a very enthusiastic audience, and you'll feel warmly welcome the entire time. Could you describe for me what a documentary reporter is? I think I know, but perhaps our audience would like to know in musical terms.
Well,
I understand that.
You mean by...
I can understand that.
Kind of by way of explaining the reason for what I do, you mean?
Well,
because of what I told the guy on the phone today?
Yeah, that's right. You told a guy on the phone today. He called up and he said, Mr. Zappa, what do you do for a living? And he said, I am a documentary reporter. Well, where's that effect?
Well, it's like this. I see things happening, and I hear about things happening, and I respond to these things, and I write songs about them, and it's kind of like being a reporter, you know. But
yeah.
The things that I report on are topics that other people ignore or don't want to discuss.
Constantly? Always?
Well, I have written some songs about topics that other people have discussed in the past. I mean, I have written a couple of love songs, but they're about certain aspects of love that, hey, you know, they don't want to put those aspects on television. You know,
That's true.
Well, anyway, look.
That's true.
You know, a lot of people like to talk around the subject.
That's right.
You know, this is what we call the euphemistic circumlocution.
Exactly. That is what talk shows are for.
That's right.
The euphemistic talk show.
Circumlocution.
Circumlocution. Gosh, you got to learn to say it before you can be a hostess, right? How do you...
How do you circumlocute?
No. I think I know, but I'm not sure I want to hear it described. How would you do a documentary accounting of the music of the 60s? If you were,
the 60s?
Yes. Could you generalize on that?
Well,
we have representatives of it here, people who... Okay.
Just check this out.
Okay.
Well, in order to talk about the 60s...
Okay.
Now, there's not much reason to talk about the 60s unless you're nostalgic, and everybody's nostalgic, so let's talk about the 60s.
Yeah.
The 60s were a lot of fun for the policemen and the government, but, you know, there was marvelous work opportunities for people in those trades. And
you're talking about one of our fellows.
That's okay. I'm telling you, you know.
I didn't become a policeman until 1970.
Oh, you're exempt.
Okay, so you got on the tail end of the good business.
No question. Isn't the tail always the best?
Well, it depends. It really depends. You know, some of them like the neck bone. Ow! You might like the tailbone, but listen.
I like neck bones too.
Could I get to music in the 60s?
Yes, music.
Music in the 60s made a statement, a very definite statement.
Yes, it did. It told the world that after the 50s, that things other than songs just about love could be manufactured and sold for enormous profit to the American people.
Well, what's wrong with that? It brought...
Like skateboards.
That's right. Anything. Surfboards, skateboards.
Surfboards and skateboards. But in doing so, if you want to go in this direction, it did arouse the social consciousness of a lot of people. I would say Bob Dylan contributed a great deal in that area, and Simon and Garfunkel in some of the statements that a lot of those people made in the 60s were significant without bearing down.
Well, I don't believe in a social conscience. I don't believe people have a social conscience.
You don't?
No. I believe that the American public likes to have a good time and doesn't have much of a conscience at all. And I think that, and if this wasn't true, then, hey, we got disco music to prove it. Now look, the whole idea is to have a good time, right? So,
always?
You know, always. I think if you find an American who says he doesn't want to have a good time, he's a communist.
Of course. And we all want to have a good time, and we all want to feel good.
That's right.
And we all want to feel joy.
That's
and
right.
we all want to feel love.
That's right.
Well, now, how is that compatible
with what?
With the kind of cynicism that you're talking about?
The cynicism that I'm talking about, this is my own personal opinion. You know, I'm the kind of a person that tells you my opinions.
Yes.
Now, the thing about opinions is, if you already agree with me, then you'll agree with me, and if you don't agree with me, I'll never convince you. But I think
People only
Yeah,
want
I have a very cynical attitude towards the American public's conscience, because if they had one, a lot of the bad stuff that is happening wouldn't happen. So, you know, we don't have a conscience, but we do like to have a good time.
Well, don't you think that the fact that we're discussing it means that there are some of us who have a conscience about some of the things that are happening in the American scene?
Well, if there was somebody watching this who had a conscience, their conscience would probably bother them, and they would go get a sandwich. But the rest of them would watch this and say, we're having a good time, you know?
We're having a good time.
Yes,
Do you agree with this?
Oh, my man, I'm sick, and I know you sick too. So
Sickness is contagious.
That's right. I think we all have a little mild case of sickness, but that's pretty sick.
Now, wait a minute.
I don't think it's a question of conscience. I mean, as a matter of fact, I don't even want to get into this subject on TV.
No, you
But I
have
don't
no
think it's a
reason talking
question
about
of conscience. I think it's a question of power.
Yeah? Well, explain that to me.
Right here, right now?
Yeah, wait a minute.
Well, no, I don't think I want to do that. I don't think I want to get into that. I'll get into that with you after the show.
Oh, well, all right then.
I will.
Okay.
I will, on the serious side.
Oh, well, I don't like the serious side because, you know, I'm here to have a good time.
And to make sure that everyone else has a good time.
No, you can't make everybody else have a good time because there's some people who refuse to have a good time.
On what basis how dare they refuse to have a good time?
Because that is their inalienable right as an American person to not have a good time.
To not have a good time.
That's right.
I quite agree.
That's why God made Republicans.
Listen, I'm having a good time. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm having a very good time. As a musical reporter, how do you feel about I'm scared to about the music industry as a whole? Because, I mean, you have had a good time making a good living at the music industry.
Well, let's talk about the music industry for a moment.
Okay.
The important word here is industry, not music. That's the key word. It's very big, and it's very powerful, and the bigger it gets and the more powerful it gets, the more appealing it becomes to people in government, because they see a vehicle by which they can reach a younger age voter group. And so we have situations like people who want to run for office approaching people who are in the music business to either donate their services for concerts or to endorse candidates. It started to happen during the last bunch of elections, and I'm sure it's going to happen a lot during the next bunch of elections. And every time you see a political figure in the presence of a person from the music business or from television or from the movies, you should smell a rat and get away from it.
You mean because you think they've been paid off to support that person, or perhaps they have convictions in that area?
There are very few times that I can imagine where convictions will play a part in it, and many times where there is pressure put on the artist, especially in terms of recording artists, where this joining of forces between the music people and the political people are to the advantage of both parties.
But now you come back to that very word that Ren used, power. Yeah. And I don't feel that an individual performer, and this is my own opinion too, I feel that when you make a statement as you have made, and as Herb has made, and as Jan and Dean and Ren and I have tried to make, that I don't feel anybody has that kind of power over me. I don't think anyone can induce me for any amount of money to perform for a candidate for whom I have no empathy, sympathy, or understanding.
But that's you.
Can I say this? Everybody has one thing, an opinion, and that's all you have.
That's right. That's all you get.
You have how do you feel, Mr. and Mrs. Gibbons?
I don't know what he's talking about.
Politics and music do not mix.
Well,
keep away from it.
Yeah.
Well, now we have Mike Kerb as Lieutenant Governor of the state, so obviously
He's a nice
politics.
guy.
Yes, yes.
How do you know?
Just told me.